report to the House the Select Committee's final report, which includes the committee's legislative recommendations and criminal referrals of Donald J. Trump and others, pursuant to Section 4A of House Resolution 503.
The question is on the motion to favorably report to the House. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman,
The criminal statute we invoke for referral, therefore, is Title 18, Section 1512C, which makes it unlawful for anyone to corruptly obstruct, influence, or impede any official proceeding of the United States government. Second, we believe that there is more than sufficient evidence to refer former President Donald J. Trump, John Eastman, and others for violating Title 18, Section 371. This statute makes it a crime to conspire to defraud the United States. In other words, to make an agreement to impair, obstruct, or defeat the lawful functions of the United States government by deceitful or dishonest means.
Well, there you have it. It was unanimous. History made yesterday at the state capitol. Good morning and welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. First, this morning, Illinois is set to become the first state in the nation to abolish cash bail. Judges will now determine who gets held and who does not. We will tell you more about that. But first, of course, as you've just been witnessing again this morning, Donald Trump was the first president impeached twice, and now he's the first with a criminal referral. Austin Cooper joins us, the managing editor of Our House, DC, and of the Washington Informer. Austin, historic moment. They were unanimous too, and keep in mind, this was a bipartisan committee. There are some Republicans who believe, like most Democrats, Donald Trump committed unforgivable crimes that generally, that so many people, let's put it where it's at, Austin. So many people now have either pleaded guilty to and are serving time for, have been convicted of and are serving time for, the worst charge being sedition. Of course, they didn't refer charges of sedition, but there's some serious charges here that the House Select Committee has referred to the Department of Justice against the former President Donald Trump.
Well, good morning, Stacey, and good morning to your viewers. It's good to be back. You know, like I believe most Americans, I sat glued in front of my television for about an hour and a half yesterday. And even though it's been, think about it, in less than 2 weeks, it will be a little more than 2 weeks. It'll be exactly 2 years since Donald Trump and his cohorts committed this crime against America, this crime against, democracy. I remember sitting on my couch right over here, being on conference calls on January 6th, 2020. And I, remember watching, the rally. I remember hearing Trump say that he's going to, you all head up to the Capitol, I'm going to be there. And I really thought it was, Trump being Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being on a conference call and seeing, the rioters getting past the initial round of security on the Capitol grounds and then really breaching the Capitol. And for a brief moment, I thought, I'm in this apartment by myself. Who switched my TV to HBO or Showtime? And what movie am I watching? I could not believe I was witnessing what I was witnessing. And I've worked for 3 members of Congress, so I know those halls of Congress and the Capitol quite well. Donald J. Trump is a criminal who continues to give to America his criminal behavior. And it is quite disappointing. It is quite disgusting. And you and I were talking before the before the show. And to me, it's always a constant reminder of white privilege here in America, and how there's one set of rules for Black Americans, and there's another set of rules for rich white Americans, and that's what we are witnessing here.
Well, one of our viewers, Power 96, always like to bring up what Power 96 is saying. Trump had Power 96 writes, Trump has been a criminal for decades. Let's keep it a stack. Trump has the complexion for the protection. Well, here,
Absolutely, absolutely.
and it's pretty much what you were saying too. But here, so we had something. You think back to the Civil War, right? You had North and South, North versus South. Y- and I'm saying this because I'm trying to reconcile all this in my mind, right? There's never been an outside attempt to overthrow the U.S. government, right? Even 9/11 was not an attempt to overthrow the U.S. government. It was just war on the U.S.,
Exactly.
right?
On the exactly.
Um, but here you not only had an attempt to overthrow the U.S. government, but it was by a sitting president led the charge
Hmm.
to overthrow the U.S. government. That's something that in itself should and will never be lost, right? Austin, on you talk about the history books and things of that nature. Nobody reads books anymore, but you know that will never be lost, right? That a sitting president, let alone any type of president. I mean, this we think about Nixon and Watergate. That was like that's a misdemeanor compared to this, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that alone made history. We also had a sitting American president who authorized the assassination of his own sitting vice president.
Yeah, no, I'm speaking too.
What these hearings showed, and a lot of people that you just referenced do not like to read, but a lot of people can relate to to visuals, and any normal thinking, independent thinking, regardless of your political or party affiliation, cannot help but look at what happened on January 6th as an attempt an attempted coup, to your point,
Right.
by a sitting president. I mean, it's just unheard of, and you're absolutely right. Even Richard Nixon from his grave is saying this is crazy. Even I wasn't this crazy, and he wasn't. When they but then you reference Richard Nixon, we had a different brand of Republicans
Right.
then. Remember, we had my history serves me correctly, we had a Democratic majority in both houses in 1970, 74. I'm pretty certain. But while the Democrats were calling for the impeachment and removal of the president, it was Howard Baker, it was other distinguished members of the GOP who went to the White House once those tapes came out and said, "It's time to go, Mr. President. You do not want us to begin a trial in the U.S. Senate, because those of us in this room in the Oval Office with you right now will not support you. And we're
Mhm.
here to tell you that there is no support amongst the majority of the Republicans." And the president made the right decision to step down.
Yeah.
That was Republicans showing courage. That was Republican putting country before party. We don't have that. We don't have that now.
Yeah.
We have Kevin McCarthy, who less than 2 weeks, who will likely be the next speaker
Mhm.
of the House of Representatives. Within 2 weeks of the insurrection, he went down to Mar-a-Lago and kissed the ring. This is the same Kevin McCarthy who was holed up in the Capitol fearing for his life,
Fearing for
who
his
was
life.
yelling at the president and pushing back against the very same president. And you would never know, based on his commentary now. Look at you're showing all of these Republicans. What was so significant about the January 6th hearing is that even, it was bipartisan.
Yeah.
We had two Republicans, Kissinger and Liz Cheney, but the GOP had the opportunity to appoint others, and they made the, I think, wrongful political decision not to appoint additional Republicans. But still, it was a bipartisan hearing,
Hmm.
and what they were so effective in doing is showing Hope Hicks and Attorney Barr
Hmm.
and a lot of people in the president's inner circle who pleaded with him to give it up. You lost the election. Who pleaded with him? Things are getting out of hand at the Capitol, Mr. President. Your own vice president is in jeopardy. His life, his family is up there. And Donald Trump sat for almost 2 hours, almost 3 hours, and did absolutely nothing. If that is not the definition of a traitor by any
Hmm.
American, much less the president of the United States, I don't know what is.
Well, here's the interesting thing, among the many interesting things I should say about the committee. You mentioned correctly so that it was a bipartisan committee. Liz Cheney was really, superb throughout this. It's interesting why she was. Where was this Liz Cheney for years before
Thank
this?
you.
But
Thank you. Yeah.
nonetheless, what was really interesting, they called hundreds and hundreds of witnesses. They had thousands of hours of testimony. And guess what? Every single witness and every minute of every second of every minute, every hour of testimony were from Donald Trump's people,
Inner circle.
Republicans,
Inner circle.
and
Hmm.
his and mostly his inner circle. So the damaging evidence, all of this damaging evidence came from within, was supported by within. Not you can't say this was a partisan witch hunt or anything like that. The four criminal referrals, right? Let's just break it down right quick. Obstruction of an official proceeding, which of course they were trying to certify the election.
Yep.
Conspiracy to defraud the United States of America. We saw his actions down in Georgia, Wisconsin. Letitia James is not letting go in New York, despite what the Manhattan district attorney has turned into a mockery up there, having DAs quit because he had refused. But all as several DAs in the Manhattan district attorney office have said, they had a mountain of evidence that they would have easily gotten an indictment and based on the evidence, easily get criminal convictions against Donald Trump. Somehow the Manhattan district attorney had decided, now he's flip-flopping. That office is flip-flopping as to whether they should pursue this or not. But he's escaped that. He got convicted. His company, I should say, was convicted in a civil matter just 2 weeks ago,
Weeks ago.
of
Yep.
lying, falsifying their records, and falsely profiting. The other charge against Trump, referred against Trump from the committee, conspiracy to make a false statement, inciting. This is the big one: inciting or assisting in insurrection. And don't forget, Austin, several people, including 5 officers, correct me if I'm
Died.
wrong, died as a result of the insurrection.
And at least one of the officers was a Trump supporter, which does not justify his death at all. This is a free country. This is a democracy. Vote for who you think he or she will be the best candidate for president on any level. But that has to be a particular gut punch to his family. Excuse me. We saw a week or two ago when these families were at the Capitol, and as they were walking by the House and Senate leadership,
Yeah.
the mother, I'm drawing a blank on the officer's name, but she and her husband refused to shake hands with Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so to me, that was a hell of a statement, Trump campaigned and allegedly governed on being a strong proponent of the police. Yet his supporters saw fit to beat police with American flags, to beat police with Trump, Trump election, Trump flags, to put their hands on law enforcement officers. Who can forget the image of that officer in the revolving door being squeezed? Who can forget the image of Officer Falone, who basically was pleading for his life and said, "Hey, I have children,"
Hmm.
and at least one of them, let up, and he was able to be led to safety. I mean, look, the criminal behavior shown by so many on that day was and remains one of the most disappointing and disgusting chapters in American history. And I think the congressman from Maryland who's on the committee, drawing a blank
Raskin.
again on his name, Raskin,
Raskin.
he said it right yesterday. It can not only be those who actually participated, who were on the ground with the insurrection, who are brought to justice. They should and need to be brought to justice, and I hope all
Well,
of them are brought to justice. But it needs to be those who organized, including Trump, including Rudy Giuliani, including the lawyers, everybody. Roger Stone. All of them need to be brought to justice on this, particularly the president, former president.
well, it's as simple as you, I, and say Greer get together, and you send us to you map out this plan to rob a bank. Her and I go do it. We get caught. You're going down too. You
Thank
masterminded
you.
it.
As it should be. As it should be.
Right. And so this guy masterminded this. That makes him worse. And a lot, you hire somebody, we see the cases all the time, Dateline, NBC, or wherever. You hire someone to kill someone, right?
They trace it
You
back to you.
you generally the person who hired the killer usually gets 20 years, but the guy who hired him gets life.
Mhm.
There's been those who have been, members of the Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, have been convicted of sedition, right? So
And you
where does
talk to
Trump?
them, Stacey, and without exception, when you talk when you listen to these young men and women as they are being sentenced, without exception, they have said, we came here because Donald Trump told us to come here.
Yep.
We believed what he said.
Austin, here's what I don't understand. Last night, Mike Pence issued a statement saying that any prosecution of Trump would be divisive. In other words, clearly he still remains against any type of prosecution. He remains against the commission. Others like Ted Cruz and et cetera on that side too. Mike Pence life was in grave danger. Like you said earlier in this program, his family was there. So guess what, Mike Pence? Had they got you wouldn't be able to say what you're
Thank you.
saying today. Had they got you, your family probably would have been in those gallows along. Remember, they had this huge noose and gallows for him and Nancy Pelosi. And you can best believe, just like when they went into Nancy Pelosi's house a couple months ago and nearly killed her husband, it's whoever you are associated with. If they got their hands on you, Mike Pence, and your family was there, your family's going down with you.
Stacey, what would you do? What would Greer do? What would I do? What would any of our listeners do if anyone had put us, and in particular our loved ones, in that kind of danger? I think I could speak for all of us to say that collectively, individually, we would do any and everything we could to put any and everybody responsible for endangering our lives and the lives of our loved ones behind bar. I cannot explain Mike Pence. I am thankful that for a brief shining moment,
Mhm.
he did the right thing.
Right. Right.
You
It's
know,
like Liz Cheney,
yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. You know, but you know, yeah, exactly. You know, Liz Cheney voted for Donald Trump. I think 95% of the time. You know,
Right.
with legislation, with with political appointees. You know, Adam Kinzinger has been right on this issue, thankfully. But this is the same Adam
Right.
Kinzinger who, a week ago, when the vote came up for I think it's called the Marriage Equality Act, voted against it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
So,
I'm sorry. So just wanted to highlight a couple of comments. Again, Power 96 Blue Lives only matter when the police is killing black people. Angela Connolly says Republicans lended a helping hand to Trump's BS until it became personal, endangering their lives, changed some Republicans' agenda. David Youngblood said those people were not joking on January 6th, and Pence was a target. And then Angela Connolly reminds us that Pence said that it's Christmas. Be jolly, leave Trump alone. And going back to Power 96, it was refreshing to see the committee acknowledge the two black women from Georgia. Those two women need to be
yes,
protected, and
yes.
charges should be brought against their attackers.
Well, the sad thing is, Mike Pence is not getting the nomination for the GOP nomination for president. Being Trump's vice president is the closest he will ever come to being in the Oval Office as
Mhm.
president. He's not getting the nomination, and I don't see what he has to gain
I don't get
by
it.
not coming. I mean, unless he's been paid, his pockets have been lined by someone. It just defies logic. But again, it's not just Mike Pence.
Mhm.
It is Kevin McCarthy.
Mhm.
It is Mitch McConnell.
But
Look,
Austin, do you think that a lot of this has to do with well, and David Youngblood, David says is that this is where I'm going to. He thinks that he needs the MAGA base. And do you think that so the victories this past November by Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert in particular have reinforced that they think they need the MAGA crowd, the rest of the Republicans, and which is why they are not going to go against Trump?
absolutely. I mean, to David, brother Youngblood's point, I agree 100%. But in particular, for Mike Pence, he's not going to benefit from the MAGA base because the MAGA base is not going to support him no matter what.
No matter what.
No matter what he does, no matter what kind of repenting he does, even if he came out and said, "I made a mistake on January 6th, I should," he's done. He is done politically. I think for Marjorie Taylor Greene and the Congresswoman from Colorado, Bohart, that you just mentioned,
Mm.
I think David and Angela and everybody are absolutely right, and that tells us on December 20th, 2022, almost 2 years after this insurrection, um, what's still a sad state of American affairs that we're in because of MAGA. And we cannot write off Donald Trump any more so than we can write off any of his apostles, any of his crazy disciples.
Mhm.
You know, um, I'm fascinated to see how Republicans are coming to terms with the craziness of Trump and the atrocities of Trump by saying, well, in 2024 we're going to look at Governor DeSantis. Hell, he's crazier than Trump.
Probably,
He's just as
and
crazy as Trump, and he's more
probably smarter.
disciplined than Trump,
Right.
smarter than Trump. Exactly. So Republicans, you're not doing America any favors by justifying in your own minds, I'm going to transition from Trump to DeSantis because DeSantis is just as, if not more dangerous than Donald Trump, and he's disciplined.
Yeah, exactly. Michelle Madison recalls being on a train headed south on January 6th. She says the MAGA crowd delayed the trip and got on the train like they were gangsters. They proceeded to intimidate
Wow,
passengers and
wow,
train staff.
wow.
She says they probably didn't pay their fares because there were so many of them. The committee Jamie Raskin in the committee also said that there may be others worthy of prosecution, and there may be other laws that Trump violated, noting that the Justice Department will be able to form a far more complete picture through its own investigation, ongoing investigation. So, and to me, when you see these quotes, when you hear these words, it's important to dissect sometimes. So he says, and I want to say this one more time, a far more complete picture. This is a direct quote from Jamie Raskin. He says that the department will be able to form a far more complete picture through its own ongoing investigation, which tells you that the Department of Justice is indeed still investigating specifically Donald Trump, for the insurrection on January 6th. Austin, what's your gut feeling or prediction? What's going to come out of these charges or refer? They're not charges. Let's be specific. They're referring charges to the DOJ. They're asking the DOJ to bring charges against Trump. What do you think is going to happen?
I know what I'm hoping is that that it results in an indictment. Folks like to like I think what the former Vice President Pence said. Folks like to talk about what's going to happen. The divisiveness of America if Trump is convicted. Trump is indicted and hopefully convicted. Let's turn the question around. What's going to happen to America if he isn't?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think we ought to look at, and if I can point out, I also don't want to, the January 6th committee has also referred 4 or 5 GOP members of Congress, including Kevin McCarthy, to the Ethics Committee for violating and not responding to congressional subpoenas. Again, double standard here. If you or I or Greer or anybody listening to this show, received a congressional subpoena, it's going to scare the hell out of me, and I'm going to get counsel, and I guarantee you, I will be there. I will respect, even if I think it's political nonsense. I will be there. And that's the danger of Marjorie Taylor Greene becoming the de facto speaker of the House of Representatives on January 3rd, because I mean, think about it. And Kevin McCarthy has already said. I mean, can you imagine? He's already said the Attorney General should clear his calendar because he's going to be spending a lot of time on the Hill. They're going to be going after a whole bunch of nonsense. The president's son. They're going to be investigating the withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Wait, stop. Can you imagine Marjorie Taylor Greene as the House Speaker? People criticize Nancy Pelosi for being there so long and maybe in some instance being out of touch. But this is a brain dead person. This person is literally brain dead and hateful as ever. You can't get too much more hateful than Marjorie Taylor Greene.
And the thing is, she doesn't formally need the title because she's going to informally have the title, which will make her, just as if not even more dangerous. She's not, some folks always say, be careful what you ask for. If indeed Kevin McCarthy becomes the speaker, this has been a lifelong ambition. Look, I was reading yesterday in some publication that Kevin McCarthy's political mentor, former California Congressman Bill Thomas, who was a moderate to conservative, Republican for a number of years, but even he said, "I don't know what's happened to Kevin. He lied. He will do whatever he can to become the Speaker of the House. This is not the Kevin that I groomed. This is not the Kevin who I groomed to succeed me in the House of Representatives." So if Kevin does indeed become the speaker, he is going to have many sleepless nights because Marjorie Taylor Greene and some of the other, Jim Jordan and some of the other crazies are going to be pushing him far more to the right than perhaps he's comfortable with. And I think it's going to backfire on Republicans in 2024.
David Youngblood says, yes, please sit for a hearing with Marjorie. We need the entertainment in America. We'll get to see the clown show setting the Democrats up for a sweep in 24. Power 96 says Marjorie
Absolutely.
Taylor Greene is a waste of cells. But David, going back to the question I asked you, David says he's convinced that Trump will be indicted and Garland, Attorney General Garland, will shock the country with his aggressive pursuit. He says Republicans have set a new standard for responding to a subpoena, but I hope Democrats will answer and sit for each one of them. I think Democrats will
They
do
will.
that.
They will.
And
They will.
and I also
As they
think,
should.
yeah, I also think that Trump will be indicted. Where it goes from there, who knows? I don't. If he's calling all the shots with his attorneys, it'll go to trial. If his attorneys are calling the shots, there'll be a plea deal that will, this is how I foresee it anyway, it'll be a plea deal where he agrees not to run for public office again. And that will be the extent of it, in my opinion, from what I can see unfolding in Trump world there.
Okay.
Austin, we obviously, this is something we'll be following, particularly if the former president is indeed indicted. Just wanted to quickly, before we wrap it up today, on January 1st, Illinois will become the first state to completely eliminate cash bonds, a closely watched bid to advance racial justice that has also raised concerns about public safety. State lawmakers last year passed a sweeping overhaul of the criminal justice system, the Safety Act, safety, T like Tom, that includes dramatic changes to pretrial detainment protocol statewide. The legislation makes presumption of release the default, and then any financial considerations in the decision of who should remain behind bars. The judge and judges now will have that unilateral decision. Prosecutors will not be able to now say we want them held without bail, or we want this amount of bail or that amount of bail. It's going away in Illinois. And already David says that's not enough. Okay, he's talking about Trump again. I'm sorry, but I thought he was talking about the cash bail, ending cash bail. But Austin, this clearly is something else. We use this term constantly about so many things, but disproportionately affects.
Absolutely.
Well, this clearly
Absolutely.
disproportionately affects people of color.
Absolutely. The majority of those in prison, right or wrongly, have always been African American men in particular, and that will remain the case. And that is the unspoken, at least publicly unspoken intent of this legislation, and it will result in far more of our brothers and sisters remaining behind bars until they are brought forward for trial. Most well, I'll say most, I would say many, Black families have had trouble putting together bail money for loved ones, cash. And now you're going to take that off the table. Why? What policy reason can there be other than to keep us behind bars?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what other states do. There's been a push by many to end the whole cash bail system, and to, because it does, Austin, in a lot of ways, not to belabor this, but it does remove, I've always said this, it removes the presumption, the so-called presumption of innocence. When you say, somebody says, look, I didn't do it, and you say, okay, well, bail is set at $1 million. I mean, you're telling me that I'm presumed innocent, but you're saying
I don't
$1
believe you.
million.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
I don't believe you.
A jury has not weighed the evidence, but I'm making a decision based on your skin color
Yeah.
that
It's just
that
like the
you
laws
are
that,
that you're guilty.
yeah, it's just like the laws that really targeted African Americans who were accused of dealing drugs or something. where they would take their properties immediately. They take their money from, they take their cars, they take their homes. You haven't even seen a judge yet. You haven't seen a courtroom yet. And I never
Presumed guilt. Presumed guilt.
right. It's like either you call it what it is, presumed guilt, or you abide by the presumed innocence thing. And we know that many, let's say, look, call it what it is. Many of us are presumed guilty. We could be walking down the street, chewing gum. It's
Absolutely.
it's
Absolutely. Absolutely.
you're guilty
Walking
of
while
something.
black. Walking and chewing gum while black. And that's
Yeah.
enough for someone to look at you, to look at us suspiciously, or to make assumptions about us. Never had a conversation with us. Don't know anything about our background, but just making assumptions based on the color of our skin and their own perceived and often well-baked theories of racism.
Yeah. Well, before we close too, just saw this just briefly a moment ago. Just the thoughts go out to Latasha Brown. She lost her son yesterday, 27 years old. Don't know any details. She didn't provide specific details, but her son, 27 years old, she said he was the light of her life. Passed away yesterday at the age of 27. The Black Press thoughts go out to
Yeah, prayers and
Latasha Brown and her
condolences
family.
to Latasha and the family. So sorry to
Yeah.
hear that.
Yeah, we're so sorry to hear that. Absolutely. Austin Cooper, man, it's always a privilege to have Austin. This guy, it's just a wealth of knowledge, and we appreciate you, Austin, and we
I
appreciate
appreciate you,
all of
brother.
you guys for watching and joining. Let it be known. Keep watching us, and check out our YouTube page. We're going to have a lot of specials exclusively for our YouTube page coming up in the near future. Check out the YouTube page, subscribe to it, have your friends and family subscribe to it. We promise you, you will not regret that, hitting that subscription button. Don't cost you anything except hitting that button. You're going to be surprised at some of the things that Greer has in store for you guys. Thanks for joining Let It Be Known. We'll see you tomorrow.